Hey, welcome back to the channel, everybody. Glad you're here. Hey, this time we're doing surfs and turfs. Yeah, I know technically surf and turf, but we ended up doing this thing twice. And here's why I say that. I had two different styles of salmon I want to get into. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But first, you gotta have some sides. And for me, nothing goes good with steak better than a baked potato. And yes, I foiled them. I probably could have gone without the foil. I know I could have gone without the foil on this one. But anyhow, I don't know what I was thinking. I just went the usual way I did, and bam, there you go. Cook those to an internal temperature around 200, so they're nice and soft on the inside. And then crank that up for my searing. But now while those were baking, in the meantime, while those were baking, I was smoking the ribeyes, getting a good smoke ring on those, and basically, dry brine those for a couple of hours, and then got those things ready to go on the smoker. In this case, we were smoking on low, keeping it, chill, if you will. And as you'll notice, I probed up one of these just so I could make sure I got it out before it went over temp. And in this case, I was shooting for a temperature of around 110, and I was going to do the sear at the end to bring everything up to about a medium rare, medium. I like mine medium rare, but there's some of the family that like theirs a little bit more medium, so I tend to cater to that. And once we hit that temp, went ahead and pulled the probe and got ready to do the sear on the direct fire side of the dual fire. So with that being said, turned off the indirect, and let's get to searing some steaks. I'll tell you one thing I kind of enjoy there is just hearing that hum of the direct side. I mean, it just really spits that flame out. And we were searing these, upwards of 500 degrees, and it really didn't take long to get some good color on that, and get them pretty much throw it on. So after a few minutes, we were pretty much there, and honestly, I wasn't the only one getting hungry. There were a few other people that were starting to get hungry. So it was time to go ahead and pull these things off and sit down for a nice meal. And if you guys listen close, you can hear these things sizzle. And I gotta tell you, that was the other thing I kind of appreciated about this cook was, that little fat cap that's on the end there. It came out just right for me, a little crisp, but at the same time, maintaining its, flavor and consistency, if you know what I'm saying. Anyhow, that was pretty good. So again, popping these off and getting inside the plate film and getting ready for the dinner while they rest. And yes, one thing I tend to do is put a little bit of butter on these as the sauce. It just, to me, complements the salt and pepper rub that was already there. This is unsalted butter going on, and just adds a little bit more moisture and flavor to it. And yeah, got a little crazy with the sour cream on this one, and true enough, I'm trying to avoid my carbs, but there you go. And you can see that smoke ring right there. It came out okay. So now for the surf side of the equation. Wanted to do some salmon. We had a good discounted sale on salmon, and picked up a whole fillet, and I tried to educate myself on the different approaches for this, and I found two that looked interesting. One was a wet brine, the other was a dry brine. Now, before we get to that point where we're actually shoving them in, let me talk about the wet brine. For the wet brine, this is a timely process. Basically mixed up a brine with 3 cups water, 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar, 3 tablespoons of maple syrup, some sea salt, some zest of an orange and a lemon, and submerged the fillet fully for 24 hours. Okay. Now, once we were out, dried that off, got it cleaned off, and let it sit in the back in the refrigerator for 4 to 6 hours to develop what was known as a pellicle. Now that pellicle is important. Once that was ready, we were good to smoke. Now, if you look closely, the pellicle is that little glossy sheen, that little tacky substance that comes to the surface of the salmon and effectively traps in the smoke and gives you that flavor. Now, I'm smoking this on some apple wood, and I got to tell you guys, that just works. You really end up picking up the flavor on there. Now, this is a cold smoke, so I've got a tray of ice in there as well to try and keep the temperature down. It was getting towards the end of spring in Texas, so I was risking it, becoming a little bit too hot. But anyhow, this came out fairly well, so you'll see the results here in just a little bit. But lit up the smoker box, got that thing smoking, and just went overnight into the next day. Really pretty simple, pretty straightforward process. It just takes some time to do it. The work really isn't that hard, but you just got to be patient. That's all. Now that said, if you look on the left-hand side, you'll see that little bitty splotch that came out. That's just because I was a little bit too hot. But overall, this came out exceptionally well. Great color. The smokiness was definitely there. I kind of jerkied the other two little pieces, and I got to tell you, they were super tasty. Now that said, the wife tends to like a little bit of salmon on her bagel, and who am I to argue with that? Back in the day, I enjoyed that as well. Now, one thing I did learn, I got to sharpen my knives. Holy cow, do I need to sharpen my knives? Okay, this one didn't really work out too well for me, so went to plan B, and this one didn't really work out too well for me. So, okay, let me try this a different way. Let me just try and see if I can slice under here, and maybe that'll work. Because that exterior gets just a little bit tough. It's like having a little bit of a crust, and you got to be able to get through that to get a nice clean slice. Again, try my boning knife, and this is just kind of where I ended up, guys. I'm sorry about that. But I do now appreciate the fact that I need to start sharpening my knives a little bit better. Flavor was still there. Plated this up, and that was a real decent breakfast for the morning, without a doubt. Okay, and as I mentioned, there was another approach, which was the dry brine approach. And in this instance, you pack your seasonings, your salt and mixture, and everything else onto the fish. You basically let that sit in the refrigerator for a certain period of time, and then you just rinse everything off, get as much of that salt off as you can, and you then let that rest for a little bit longer to develop that pellicle. Now, while this came out decent, I'll share with you the wet brine was just way better. Okay, like I got a great pellicle on this one as well, as you can see. It was perfect in that regard, but I guess it was just a little bit too difficult to get all the salt off of this, and so this one came out much more savory to my taste. Now, that's not saying my wife wouldn't like it, because she likes things that are a bit salty, and that's all good. And the other thing I learned is, get yourself a torch, because that little Bic lighter I had that last go around was not doing me any favors. So anyhow, I made the investment into a torch to light this thing up, because I have a feeling I'm going to be doing some more of these cold smokes, and we can hear the sound of this. Now, once we finished up on this one, you'll notice I got a little bit more of those splotches. That just is because it was a little bit too warm to really get an effective cold smoke. But got a lot of color on this, and again, got a lot of flavor on this one. And, it worked out fairly well. Okay, now got the final wrap up with the final turf. Classic burgers and dogs. The family was just hungry for burgers and dogs. So I gotta tell you though, I liked the color of the dogs on this. It got some good char marks on that one, and there was one girl that almost ended up with two, because I think I was about to sneak one of those. It looked pretty tasty. Anyhow, burger time was abound, and just time to get that onto the plate, and time to feed the family. Again, I just like the hum of that direct heat on the direct side of that grill. It just comes out, pretty good. Now, in this instance, get the burgers, on our side. I tend to cook them anywhere between 130 and 140. I like mine a little bit more on the medium rare side, but again, pleasing the family. They like theirs. Some of them like theirs a little bit more well done. This time we got the burgers in there, a little thicker. Didn't go smash, but may try that here again in the future. Now that said, oh wait, what is that? You hear some music? Oh yeah, that's the music. Time for your time is in. Here we go, then, boys. And yeah, do me a favor, like and subscribe and give me some comments. Truly appreciate it.